What's up, crew? Hope you're having a rad day. I'm Alan. This is the MTB Alan channel. Check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not, hit the subscribe button and I will show up in your feed every Monday with rad episodes like this one, where I give you the insider scoop on how to make sure your first time at Snow Summit is a rad one. Snow Summit is Southern California's premier lift access bike park. I know I'm up there pretty much every weekend it's open. I always have a blast and I get a ton of questions about all kinds of things about that park, bike requirements, helmet requirements, what are the trails like, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, if you've never been or if you've only been up a few times, this video will help you out. To get started, let's do a quick tour of the bike park. All right, I'm gonna give you a little bit of orientation. I don't normally get this rad parking spot, but I parked there, but you can park anywhere in here. It's free and it's pretty dang close because the trails are just up there. So if you park down here, you can just put a cooler in your truck and then you'll have fizzy drinks readily available just off the lifts. And then that's where the bathrooms are. That's the general outlay of where you're at in the parking lot. I'll show you what's on the other side in just a second. Action. Where are you going?
I don't know.
All right. So we were just down there. You would get your tickets there. Just a quick little tip. You can sign your waiver online, so that'll save you a little bit of time when you go to get your tickets. Another little pro tip is your day pass goes on your bike, not on yourself or on your pack. And the appropriate installation point is the rails of your saddles, not the handlebars. So now we're up here. I'm gonna turn it around right there. There's coffee, food and stuff, and then the lifts are up. The lifts are up there. We'll check back in up there. As a note, if you're not on a bike, you can take the scenic sky chair. That's where you go for that. But if you're on a bike, Katie, if you're on a bike, however, you want to go this way. All right. So normally, okay, so we just came from up there. This is chair one, like right up here. And then you can also cruise up there and that will take you to chair two. The lines are usually about the same. It can fool you a bit because it can look like those lines are a little bit shorter, but it does have to go and wrap around. So do know that either chair usually works fine. They'll get you to the top of the mountain. Let's check back into the top of the mountain. Thank you. All right, so we're at the top of chair one. Boop. Just so you know, there's a bathroom down that way. Now, how do you get to the trails from here? That's the double black 10 ply down there. You may not want to warm up on that. Miracle Mile is available right there. And then Party Wave, West Ridge, Going Green, and Turtle are all available through a transfer trail over there. So that's chair one. And now we're gonna go up to chair two. Okay, so we are at the top of chair two. Again, bathrooms. The entry to the trails is kind of that way. You can go right or left. If you go left, it'll take you over to chair one, to those trails over there. You can still take that transfer over to get over to the other trails. If you go right, it'll take you directly to the start of Party Wave and Going Green and kind of over by Turtle. So I tend to go right here to get over to those trails because it's just kind of a more fun trail.
Freaking love your videos.
What's up, dude? How's it going?
Pretty good.
All right, so that's a quick tour of Snow Summit. I'm gonna turn you back over to my other self. All right, with that taken care of, the first thing I'm gonna tell you is you want to take it easy. So if you're like me, you get butterflies before you're even in the parking lot. But the last thing you want to do is end your first run in first aid. Like most bike parks, Snow Summit encourages you to pre-ride, re-ride, and then free ride. Pre-ride to wake everything up, feel out where your body is at, check your equipment. Re-ride to get familiar with the trail, the features on the trail, and its overall rhythm. And then free ride to gradually get faster and go bigger. This goes for starting out your day as well as riding a trail that you're unfamiliar with. Now, taking it easy is particularly important if you're not familiar with the loose and dusty charm of SoCal terrain. Snow Summit trail crews are constantly working to maintain the trails, but the nature of the soil sometimes dictates the conditions.
Oh shit! Oh my god!
It's actually super fun once you get used to it, but you do need to take the time to learn the subtle ways of loose over hardpack. I should say though that a pair of good grippy tires goes a long way towards helping you out riding the terrain at Snow Summit. The MAXXIS Minions, for instance, were actually designed for SoCal terrain. You can check the link in the description if you're interested in those. But speaking of tires, that actually brings us to what kind of bike do you need at Snow Summit? Before we talk about the type of bike you need, let's talk about the basic concept of maintenance. Gravity parks are a lot harder on your bike than your normal trails. The repeated downhill runs through rock gardens, braking bumps, and case jumps can take a finely tuned machine from the beginning of the day and make it sound like a clapped out box of tools by the end of the day. So the last thing you want to do is just dust off something from the garage or from your well-meaning friend's garage and then head up the mountain with it. Whatever bike you're going to run, make sure it is in good working order before you hit the trails. If you're uncomfortable working on your own bike though, at least take it into the local bike shop and have them give it some love. Now, the question I get asked all the time boils down to basically how much bike do you need at Snow Summit? How much travel do I need? Can I ride a hardtail up there without dying? Will my 2012 Trance do just fine? Simply put, you can take any bike up there and have a good time, provided you stick to the appropriate trails. If you're gonna ride the green and blue trails,
So beautiful up here.
pretty much any half-decent mountain bike that's in good working order will do you just fine. The black and double black trails, on the other hand, require at least 140 millimeters of travel in the rear and enough riding experience to know the limits of that kind of bike. Simply put, if you haven't taken that type of bike to its limit, you're probably going to have the most fun on the blue and green trails, regardless of what type of bike you're on. I should say, my first season at Snow Summit, I had a blast riding a 29er XC hardtail. I stayed off the blacks. I pretty much did laps on Going Green and some of the trails off the backside of the bike park. I'll put links to those backside trails in the description. Speaking of trails, let's talk about the trails. Picking the right trail is essential to having a good time at Snow Summit. I'm not going to detail each one of these trails, but you can check that corner link for a playlist that has my trail guides and full pulls on some Snow Summit trails. In the meantime, let's talk about picking the right trail. Bike parks use color coding to help you pick the right trail. You should already be familiar with these: green for beginner, blue for intermediate, black for advanced, and double black for if you gotta ask, you probably can't afford it. The rating systems aren't always done equally from park to park, and that's why parks like Snow Summit will often add what's known as a squirrel catcher at the beginning of its trail. The squirrel catcher is a feature that gives you an idea of the minimum amount of skill required for that trail. So if you're looking at that feature and you're scared, if you're overly tentative going over the feature, or worse, if you're looking for a way around the feature, you'll probably want to consider a different trail. Remember, that feature is there for your safety as well as the safety of your fellow riders. One note on Miracle Mile, its squirrel catcher is actually a little bit further down the trail. It's the rock garden that goes under Chair 1. So if you're going through this rock garden and you're wide-eyed and death gripping, just know that that trail doesn't get any easier. I'm not saying this to discourage you, just making sure that you have a good time while you're at Snow Summit. One last thing about the trails, do know that at certain points on the mountain, the trails will split, and one side will be a black diamond and the other side will be a blue. So pay attention to that when you come to those splits. I've definitely watched a dad unknowingly guide his family off of the manageable berms of Turtle, into the NAR of Lower Miracle Mile. Yeah. But speaking of NAR, that brings us to protection. I've gotten asked a number of times if a full face helmet is required at Snow Summit. The simple answer is no, they're not required. But let me answer the more general question, which is how much actual protection do you need while riding at Snow Summit? And I will answer that by saying that riding in a bike park largely involves high speeds and hard edges. So exposed skin is a liability and unpadded joints are a gamble. This doesn't mean you need to shell out a whole bunch of money to get DH pants and the full Stormtrooper getup, but it does mean you'll probably want to be smart about it. If you're wearing knee pads and a pair of jeans that have some stretch in them, they're going to protect you a lot better than workout pants and a tank top. So in addition to the helmet, I would suggest knee pads, elbow pads, and gloves, and generally keep your skin covered. Do know that Snow Summit does rent protective gear. So now that you've got the bike, the gear, and you know what trails to ride, let's talk trail etiquette. Hopefully you're already aware of basic trail etiquette, like never stopping in the middle of the trail and finding a safe place to pull over when you want to let a faster rider pass. Here are a couple of bike park specific pieces of trail etiquette. This first one's not that obvious. When you get to the trailhead or the drop-in point, there's actually a bit of a lineup. You may see groups of riders just kind of hanging out. They may not actually just be hanging out, they may be giving the previous group a little bit of space on the trail before they drop in. So once you roll up to the trail, check body language, maybe kind of feel out what's going on, and if you really want to drop in and aren't sure, ask somebody nearby if they're about to drop in. You'll find that this will actually trigger some dynamics and then people will start dropping in, or they'll just tell you, go ahead. Check your six. So before you drop in or before you start back up from a rest area, always check behind you and make sure no riders are coming. Bike park trails are generally built for high speed, so more advanced riders are going to be coming in hot. And then lastly, give a hoot. This one is for those of you who may end up being pretty fast on the trails, but are unfamiliar with bike park culture. If you see a slower rider in front of you, start expressing how much fun you're having with hoots and hollers. This warns them of your approach without making you sound like an aggressive asshole.
Nice, buddy.
Then remember that they get to choose if and when they pull over.
Yeah.
I personally like to give them a lot of encouragement.
There you go.
This reminds them that I'm there with positivity.
You got it. Oh, thank you. There's a couple more.
Do remember though that you never know where a rider is at. They may have just crashed, they may be coming back from an injury, but in the end, we're out there to have fun and we're just riding bikes. Which brings us to the last point. Relax and have fun. If you're by yourself and feeling insecure, know that every other rider in line with you also had to learn the ways of the bike park. And if you get the chance to share a lift with another solo rider, take the opportunity to ask them some questions. Any rider worth their salt is going to be willing to share whatever information or tips they might have. But if you can go with friends, that's the best. There's nothing like chasing your friends down a trail, seeing what lines they take, and sharing the stoke. So hopefully this will make your first trip to Summit a good one. If you feel like I've missed anything major, hit me in the comments. I'd also love to hear about your first trip to Snow Summit. Hit that like button, check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not, hit the subscribe button and I will show up in your feed with rad episodes like this one every Monday. And with that, I'll see you next week.